And that's how we'd like to start the show, with just a small moment of silence.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, have a
So,
good evening, guys. Bye.
apparently I'm hosting the show tonight, which means the show's probably going to suck. But that's
Well,
okay.
we're
I mean,
definitely going to lose viewers.
yeah. I mean, Jose showed up. That's, but then I threatened him with physical violence.
That is
So,
true. That is true.
which brings us to our topic tonight about fights in comic books. And
Oh, I thought you were going to say physical violence in the workplace.
we could talk about that too. I mean, I'm sure they have that in comic book pins. People fight.
Right?
I mean, we could talk about the legendary Chris Claremont John Byrne fights, right? Or the what was it? Wasn't it? Was it Alan Grant and the guy who wrote um, Alan Moore? Or was it Alan Moore and Grant? I can't remember the guy. Then they have like a magic war going on.
I did not even know that. That's new to me.
It was
And
like
that
because
sounds
Alan Moore
amazing.
was a wizard, and I think it was Alan Grant or whatever. I think anyone out there watching. No, I can't remember, but I think they had like some sort of wizarding war, and they're still going at it. Maybe I
I
don't know.
mean, that wouldn't surprise me because, I
No,
mean,
no, it doesn't. I
almost looks
know
like a
Alan
wizard.
Moore has a
Like,
bunch of
that
like.
dude looks like he would turn you into everything.
Doesn't it?
Just saying, while drinking a pint.
Yeah, I know. By taking like locking down a pint, right? So
Yep.
so yeah, I guess we're just gonna chit chat. I think we might have a few more members show up. They said they would if I'd leave. Um, which
Don't
I
give
didn't.
in to their Gestapo demands.
Yeah, I'm not giving into that. I don't. We don't give in to terrorists on this channel.
Right?
So speaking of comic book fights, do you have any artists that draw like amazing comic book fights?
Um, I don't know if I would like say any in particular. I like Greg Capullo drawing when he was drawing
Yeah,
Batman fighting the Talons. I thought that was really cool. That was really well done. Um, I like more outlandish stuff. Like if a dude's in the air, just like gives like the most amazing punch that like shatters the universe and whatnot. I just think
yeah.
that's cool.
I remember Tom
Like
McFarlane
I'm a
talking about
huge fan of like breaking reality just to throw a punch.
definitely. Tom McFarlane talked about that. I remember him talking about he was drawing Spider-Man like with fighting the Ghost Rider, and I think it was the Ghost Rider grabbed Spider-Man and one of the guys, but he's like instead of just holding him up in front of me, he like drew this picture of like Ghost Rider like holding this guy way up in the air. The idea of like pushing the poses and exaggerations, like you were saying,
Right.
and Greg Capullo being kind of underneath or working on Spawn developed that style. He's developed his own style kind of now, but very much of that sort of which I like that. Joe Mad used to do that. He was really good at accentuating fights.
Joe
Getting
Mad had some really good like angles when he was
yeah,
doing panels for like different fights. It was like he definitely like fed off of like manga and like anime
yeah,
when like creating his fights because it was always like Garrison with the big sword right up in your face and whatnot, and like
right,
everything in the background behind him or like in front of it was underneath like that big zoom of the sword. Everything was like you know what I mean.
yeah, yeah.
Like he definitely had some really dynamic like paneling but dynamic camera angles when it came to like his particular fight scenes.
Apparently, Roland's asking how you're coming on those cat and mouse things. I mean, not the fact that we're actually on the air live, but now our boss is checking in to see if we're
I know,
working
right?
or not. Yeah.
I'm
No,
working on it, boss. I'm working on it.
yeah. That's okay, Roland. It's not like you have legitimate questions or anything. Just go ahead. Would you like to know what I'm doing? I'm not going to tell you, but you can ask. That's right. I defy you.
I do. To watch Roland has like secret controls back at the man headquarters, and
Yeah, I know.
like oh yeah, Aaron's gone.
I've never seen somebody's head explode on live television. You have
Right?
now. Uh, I always liked. I remember Larry Stroman, who did Alien Legion, used to do really good fight scenes. But he would use sort of the same angles like Joe Mad would do. And there were some people that really were good at using those sort of straight, sharp angles to really get that sort of
Yeah.
like energy and stuff out of fights. Oh, the covers. Well, right now I'm actually finishing up the last page of the obsoletes, and then the covers are coming next. So one thing before the other, since I'm on the very last page, which I'm looking at right now, and then the covers are coming.
Sure you are. Sure you are.
Look, I'm allowed to lie
The
on air.
boss keeping us in check.
Yeah, I know. He's coming in to check. He's like, I know you've been screwing around. I just know you have. Yeah, I have been.
I will
Um,
say that like I've been working on stuff, but um it is very I've learned it's very hard to to work as efficient as I normally do when my kids are here for the summer. I'm so glad for
oh,
tomorrow.
oh,
Like
wow.
tomorrow my kids go back to school. It's so good.
So wait, that's early. I thought
Yeah.
schools usually start at the end of August. Now they're starting. That's like almost the beginning. Like,
Um the county next to ours, theirs started what I think a week or so ago, I believe. Yeah,
he
like
looks in
they're
Dropbox. Well, you're not going to find it there, Roland. I still have to photocopy the pages and put them in. No, there's no trust with him. There's no faith.
I feel that um I'm gonna get beat when I go to Kissimmee for for Infinity Toy, like what was it, Toy Comic Convention?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. You're going to a comic convention soon. You guys have so many
Yeah,
down in Florida. We never seem to have that many up here, which I always find weird in
yeah. I
Portland.
just went to one in my local area. It's the second year for it, or second event up for it because they
Yeah,
had one in January. And I go with my local comic shop. They like he bought, buys the tickets or tables and whatnot. He
yeah.
bought an entire back row. So like we had an entire row like of him selling comics and then us selling artwork.
That's cool. Did you guys
Yeah.
sell a decent amount of stuff or?
It wasn't too bad. It wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
We usually have a contest of like, sorry, I got something in my eye. I'm trying to get it out. Well, we usually have a contest, as funny as it sounds. Whoever sells the most buys dinner. I just want to put it out there. I've not bought dinner yet. So
Oh man, yeah. It's just me. I'm trying to think. I did table a few times. With my friend Juan. That was fun, but I usually never. It's sometimes hard to find people to split table costs with.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
Well,
kind
I
of.
have to cover the whole thing because usually I table with my daughter.
Oh, the does she draw and stuff too?
She does sketch cards and um yeah, she started off just like hanging out with me and then she's like, hey, I'm bored, can I draw on your sketch cards? I'm like, sure. And so she just started fishing them off the side of the table and she's like, you can throw them away if you want. And I just put a tag that said $3 a sketch card, and ever since that she was like raking it in hand over fist.
Wow,
Yeah,
showing up the professional.
she
You
really
know,
did, because that first convention I sold like nothing and she sold everything.
so she
I was like,
bought
okay,
dad dinner that night.
man. No, I still had to pay.
It's like the more you make, the more you pay. You know
Right?
that's how it always works.
But it was cool. It was a cool, great experience for her, and like
Yeah.
she loves it. And now my younger children are like, "Oh, Dad, when I go to start doing conventions with you," I'm like, "Wait, you're doing conventions with me? That's cool."
Aw, that always
Yeah,
works. Then about like 30 minutes into it, I'm bored, Dad. This is
yeah.
boring. I'm like, yeah, I know.
I was like,
I
"Listen,
warned some friends
I
like,
know it
hey,
sounds like I know it sounds exciting and fun and whatnot, but I actually go there to work. Like I
yeah,
have to go there and talk to people, which I'm not good at, and
yeah, try to get
it,
over anxiety. Yeah, I mean, even when I go to conventions, I mean, I'm trying to think, I rarely see the convention. I mean, I get to wander around a little bit, like before the convention starts and stuff, but I rarely am there to like, you know, see stuff. I mean, I always feel like there's so
right.
much I miss. So it gets lonely at the table. So
Right. I try to get up at least once, maybe twice, just like usually at the beginning when things are like right before it opens. The conventions I've been to, you can get up and walk around, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
I try to do that. I try to go at the beginning that way because if there's other artists there, I want to go say hi.
Yeah, and over the years, I've gone to one convention where I've met a bunch of artists that I know and always like to stop by and say hi and how they're doing. Um, it just got announced that I think Jim Lee's coming to our Rose City Comic Con, so that's
Oh,
pretty
that's
cool.
cool.
I've seen him before, but it's been a long time since I've seen him. Um, I mean, I saw him back when he was doing like this image tour, and I
Yeah.
got to meet him. And I remember I got um, he did these X-Men trading cards. That was just the X-Men. It was all Jim Lee doing the trading cards. And I remember I got like these 5 holograms that were like these chase cards, all signed by him.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I still have the set. It's still out there. I mean, again, now it seems like no one buys anything unless you have like a certificate of, that shows it's really him. But like, no, it's really him. So it was pretty cool. Because I used to collect all those cards, I just never knew what to do with them after a while. So I'm trying to think of comics that had some of the. It's funny. I remember some of the fight scenes. Like when I read the X-Men, Chris Claremont was very good at describing in detail each fight. Like I remember he would, Storm would always be thinking, if I could just change the molecules to do this or this or this. And do you still have the cards? Yes, yes, I do. I still have the original Jim Lee cards, all of them, and the holograms are signed. Yeah, that's only. There was a few other image sets that I had. I sold those off, and then but I did keep that one just because it was kind of unique. So, and welcome Kisisi um to the stream. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I do have those still. Um, do you? So when you read fight scenes, Jose, do you like fight scenes that have a lot of dialogue, or do you rather just have fight scenes with no dialogue and mostly just visuals?
Um, I don't. The dialogues I don't really mind them as long. I
Yeah,
mean, it as long as it's not like the Sandman in a fight scene, because then half the page is dialogue.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I
It
mean, keep it clean and simple. Like who was it? Ryan Otley. When Ryan Otley did Invincible, like those fight scenes were like always over the top.
yeah. He was
Like
classic
so
at doing that,
raw,
and the bloodier the better. I remember when that
right?
when that show was made for uh like Amazon, I'm like, are they gonna make it as bloody and gory as because they didn't really show it,
Right?
and then yeah, then they even I think there were some scenes in the show that actually outdid the comic. Um, but he was always
Yeah,
really good at doing.
they were pretty rough.
So CC asked,
But
"What's the
I
best
mean,
fight sequence, or I guess most memorable comic fight sequence?" That's a hard one. I was actually thinking about this earlier today when they brought up the topic. One of my most memorable ones, I think, is strange enough from the Dark Knight Returns when he's fighting the mutant gang and he jumps out of the tank to fight the leader, and that's when like he gets defeated. I always really liked that scene. I always remember that it's just like one of these iconic scenes. Um,
I liked when he fought Superman.
yeah, at the very end.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was that to me that was cool because I mean I feel that that was thought out over the course of pages that it was. It
right.
just
Like to set up the traps or whatever.
yeah.
There's a few X-Men. I really did like. There was a storyline in the X-Men called the Mutant Massacre. That was when they
Oh
went
yeah.
down and these mutants called the Reavers destroyed
More
the
yeah.
Morlocks.
Marauders. It was the Marauders.
Marauders, that's right.
The Marauders,
Um,
yeah.
and yeah, I love that though that fight scene. That entire storyline was great, but that was the one where they eventually. I think that was the first time Wolverine and Sabretooth really went at it. Like towards the end of it, they met
And
and were
just
really
cut
fighting.
loose.
Yeah, yeah.
I
I'm
know
trying to.
that's the storyline where Archangel had his or Angel had his wings cut off.
Yeah, yeah. He
Was
they
it
crucified him down there.
Harpoon speared him into the wall.
Yeah, yeah. That was an intense storyline, man.
That was
CC
moving
says,
for me.
would you say that your favorite fight was great because it was displayed well visually, or just a story-based anticipation?
Just the pacing.
The
Like the
pacing,
visual, yeah, like the
yeah,
visual display of it is great. Like I said mentioned before, Ryan Otley has a nice visual display
hmm
when he did Invincible. Like you definitely saw like dynamic angles and like you saw in the way. the fight went across the page, you saw it flow very smoothly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even when like they're crashing through glass or crashing like just decimating buildings and whatnot, it had a really nice flow. But in order to do that, I feel you need the pacing to do it. Like you have like
Yeah.
to understand pacing because I can do a fight scene that just everyone's slaughtering everybody, but like if I
Right.
don't do the pacing correctly, then it's just gonna get like very like jumbled, and you're just gonna be like, okay, that's just a whole lot of hot bloody
Yeah.
mess for no reason.
I would think visually for me. I'd probably say it was displayed well visually. The pacing is good, but I remember in the '90s a lot of the fight scenes were not well. At least some of the books I remember, a lot of them were not well choreographed. They kind of were really into like doing like certain poses, and they would draw the superheroes in the favorite poses in a fight, but it never felt like the battles were like well thought out or choreographed. I guess for a comic, a lot
Yeah.
of the image books had that. I think sometimes.
Well, they did a lot of like Wolverine ending people in like one hit. Like,
Yeah.
like all he needed was one good punch or one good swing, and it was over, which I thought was kind of lame. I'm
Yeah.
being honest. I thought, come on,
No.
like,
Yeah.
okay, dude, I know he's the best there is at what he does, but
But you gotta give him something.
really, yeah,
That's always like it was funny, they just, saw the cover, the famous one where he got crucified on the X's, lots of crucifixion, but when he was on the X, I think that
I
was
know,
the
right?
yeah, the cover of that was great. Wolverine had I'm trying to think of any good Wolverine fights. He has some good ones with, Sabretooth and stuff. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think. I really like some of the fight scenes in the manga Appleseed. Um But they were a little different. They were more like gunfights and stuff. But the guy who wrote
Oh,
Appleseed,
nice.
Matsumune Shiro, since Appleseed is about this SWAT team in the future, E-SWAT, which is extra special weapons and tactics because they dealt with cyborgs and technology. But he would watch training videos of SWAT teams and stuff. Like he really
And
researched SWAT
incorporate that in.
tactics and
That's
stuff.
cool.
And he put that into the book. In fact, there's actual data books talking about stuff that he drew into the panel that he didn't talk anything about. And he just drew it in. Like one scene I remember was, and I never figured it out until somebody pointed out in the data book, and I was like, "Oh wow, that's really cool." It was basically this two people, Dunan, who's the main hero, was at the end of the hallway, and there was a guy at the other end of the hallway hiding behind corner. And I think she shot down the hallway, and as she ducked around corner, she put two bullets in the side of the corner so the guy wouldn't come out, basically showing cover. And I'm like, oh, but he showed that, and then it's like later I'm like, okay, I get it. So
That's
I mean,
interesting.
that was interesting because he really researched what went into it and made it somewhat believable, even though it's supposed to be science fiction.
Right.
Um, yeah, yeah, um,
Batman was another one that happens to just knock people down. Like was it Lonely Place of Dying? It wasn't a lot of to me it was anyway. It wasn't a lot of fight scenes in that because it was mostly a story of like realizing that Batman kind of let go and was like being more vicious. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Because after Jason Todd had died, and was it Tim Drake was discovering he figured out who Batman was. And, I mean, not to spoil the storyline for
yeah,
people, but it's been out since like the '90s, and um, but like the fight, even the like, there's a fight with a knifed serial killer on a bridge, and like it was only a few panels, but like it was meant to show that the Batman was unforgiving. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
or was it I think Bart Sears did the artwork for Justice League International in the late '90s, I think, or early 2000s, and Batman beat the crap out of Guy Gardner. Like that was cool. They did a lot of the cover where it shows like Guy Gardner and I think it's Booster Gold and Red Rocket holding him back, like he's like trying to fight. And then they did that again with like or this time they did another one where they were holding Guy Gardner as he looked like he got the crap beat out of him. And I think that's the one where he fought Metamorpho because
was that
it
the
was
guy
a
who did like
Stein.
different elements? Like he could turn it into like water,
Yeah.
different body parts. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and his father-in-law was trying to keep him from seeing his son and whatnot. It was weird. And then I mean, as funny as it sounds, that actually made me like Guy Gardner more. The fact that he got the crap pulled out of him.
I don't read much. I've read a little bit about it, but I remember him. Looks like Cece has a question. He's like, sorry for all the questions. I know, all
Oh,
the
yeah,
better.
not a
Hey,
problem, dude.
keep them coming. But this is a great topic. As an artist, how do you prefer fight sequences described to you? I've heard sometimes writers just say fight sequence. Do you, as an artist, want the ability to think it through, or would you prefer a description? That's a good question.
I don't mind a little bit of input. Like if you're like, oh, hey,
Yeah.
if this guy's like if the writer wants to break it down and be like, oh, this guy does martial arts, you know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like this guy does like, and you want to pick a martial art, whatever, kung fu, taekwondo, whatever, right? And then his opponent is a kickboxer, or his opponent is like a classic boxer.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because then that helps to like choreograph the fight. Because then as an artist, you can look up references to like different fights in those particular techniques.
Yeah.
Um, I know. Was it Curtis's book?
Yeah. Now I
The
would
fight
need
scenes are supposed to be like
detailed
super,
descriptions from
super.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that I think it depends. It's funny. I think now the one I have, like, he's describing the one book I'm working on now. He's describing some of the fights. I think a little description helps me. Like, I'll develop the flow off the description. If it's just a fight, I mean, I might have fun, but it might be more of a splash page or something. But I do like a little description because I want the reader to kind of see what the flow is. I want the
Right.
guy who's writing it. I basically want him to instill like what's going to happen, especially with the storytelling through the fighting. I mean, sometimes some comics just have they fight and then they defeat the guy. But a lot of stories will do storytelling through the fight. Like maybe they're fighting, but during the fight they're trying to stop somebody from pressing a button to blow up a bomb or something, or there's storytelling mixed into the fighting. That I would need description for. But if somebody just like these people fight and say, I don't know, I've never had a writer say that to me. I've had it. Well, no, the one Kurt one did, and I had some fun doing that. I think it's a mix, maybe. I don't know.
Right.
That's an interesting question. I've done so much of my stuff by myself that I've always had these things choreographed in my head. So this is the first time I've been working with another writer and not really encountered an if or. So yeah.
Like having to do it according to somebody else's, not so much their vision, but like somebody else's like inspiration and whatnot,
Hmm.
or their pacing.
Yeah, and especially if there's storytelling in it. I mean, if the writer is visually describing um yeah, so it would probably yeah, I think it would depend on the powers of the characters. Like um certain writers will write panel like I drew myself as a writer, Mike Gollings, I drew a panel of these two people arguing, and as they were arguing, there was supposed to be this guard that was getting irritated. Not like he's the guard is guarding this sort of like royal speaker, and he's arguing with somebody in the crowd. And as I show like them arguing back and forth, the middle panel is the guard getting more suspicious and more like, and then as I do, I close up on the mouse. So like it's a headshot, and then when they're arguing, the second one's a little closer, and then the second one's like just the mouse shot of them arguing. And then eventually the guard gets irritated enough that he shoots the guy in the crowd. And so that to me, I would need the writer to tell me exactly what I need to do that, and that would be
Right.
considered almost an action or a fight. It's a verbal fight, but still, um, I
But
mean,
that's
I
still
would,
the
yeah,
was it that you're still setting it up, you know what I mean? You're definitely setting it up for like a more of a dynamic kind of surprise thing, you know what I mean?
right, setting up for the next page because it was like
Yeah.
supposed to be to the end, and then you turn the page and like, um, so. But yeah, I played with that. I played with flow of fights. I had one at the very end of my book that this guy was beating this guy kind of to death, and I wanted him to basically kind of like realize what he was doing. So I had to watch the flow of panels for him to like he kind of looks at his fist and realize like he's becoming exactly like that he's beating this guy up because he murdered somebody he knew, but of course, you become the murderer by getting revenge.
Right.
So it's like he had to realize that. Um yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's funny. I don't write a lot of. I write some powers in my comics, but not as much. Most of mine are, and I'm not trying to think. Most of mine are fisticuffs, like punching or whatever. I do have some powers in there.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine like every time you see like was it X Factor back in the day with was when Will Portacio was doing some stuff. Um, it was always, and you could always tell when like, okay, we just want to put a fight scene in here because you would put like say Archangel in there or Cyclops and someone who could possibly counter Cyclops' powers or like redirect, and the same with
Yeah,
someone who was like on equivalent with Archangel or someone that could counter Jean Grey's psi powers. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
either
There
you
was
do the
always
research to find those characters, or you make them up.
Yeah, and the one thing I've always really liked when it comes to powers, because CC went powers, I've always loved when people write how powers combine. Chris Claremont did a really good job. Now, him I've read the most. There was a guy who wrote New Warriors who did a pretty good job. But I always liked that when the teams have powers, would have to use their powers together to defeat the bad guy.
Right.
Um, like Storm would freeze something so Colossus could punch it and shatter it or something. There was a I always really liked that stuff, and I think that also comes from the writer. Um, where he would have to describe exactly what powers go what or whatever. Trying to think of who else did that. The Avengers did it some. That was kind of almost been a little bit of my problem with the Avengers, some of the superhero movies. They show a lot of action scenes, but they show sometimes they don't really focus on the fact like these are a team and they could work together as a team. They kind of just show them each having their own individual fights off instead of working together as a team. The first Avengers movie, they actually kind of did that. They showed like Iron Man like display his like laser beam off Cap's shield and stuff. Did a few things like that.
Right. Oh,
Yeah,
during was that the first Adventure movie?
yeah.
Right.
There was a little
With the
scene of him
Chitari.
doing that and stuff. So yeah, um, I've always liked that because to me, I'm like, unless you combine the powers in a fight scene, what's the point of having them as a team? So
Right.
that was always one thing I really liked about doing that stuff. Um, Yeah, I don't know. What is your favorite type? Do you like more like power-based fights, or do you like more fisticuff fights, or in
I
comics
actually like
now?
more fisticuffs because you can, like I
Yeah,
said, you're playing more with angles with that. You know what I mean?
right.
I mean, I guess you could do that, but like when you're drawing, because I remember a lot of was it Jim Lee stuff when he worked on Wildcats. You know what I mean? Maul would come in and just smash everything, but it just,
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it didn't seem like they were working as a team. I mean, they still got stuff done, but it wasn't, it wasn't that captivating for me. I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, I have to admit there was I probably like fisticuffs more. Now I'm looking back. I do like firefights. I mean, Alien Legion. I like the fight scenes in there, and they had more guns blazing, like firefights. Firefights I think could be done well. I think they're almost a little harder than fisticuffs. Just because sometimes, and now this is just me as an artist, so take this as you will, but sometimes I pay attention to angles where, so in my mind, I have a mental layout where like everything is almost like a dungeon master would draw like a map, like
Yeah.
your character's here and your character's here, getting those angles. I have that mentally in my head, and so I try to visually display that too. This is great for new writers, Michelle. Discussion of good angles. Yeah, angles work great. Foreshortening, doing different angles. Um, yeah. Uh-oh. We have a
I
new
actually wasn't
member
any
coming
good
in.
at that until I went to school. Quicken.
I made it.
Quentin came in.
I made it.
You did.
I
Thank
did.
you for showing up, Quentin. It's been a while since I've seen you.
I know.
Yeah, you've
I
been on
wanted to.
vacation.
Yeah, I went on vacation and man, came back to a bunch of work. It's been a lot of work, man. Yeah,
So,
America,
I mean,
capitalism, getting ahead,
that's right.
living the dream.
well, you do nothing but live the dream. That's for sure.
Oh yeah,
So, we're talking about fisticuffs fighting tonight. I'm sure you probably already know that, like in
yeah.
comic
I'm
books and
quite a bit
stuff.
of a fighter. Oh, okay, in comics.
Well, you fight over comics, right?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, it's
I,
mine. It's got my name on it.
yeah.
Right.
I have before. Yeah.
So, Cassisi also asked, I can imagine it'd be hard started making a gunfight scene interesting in a comic. It wasn't like a gun kata such from equilibrium. Yeah, so like gun kata would actually like doing martial arts or doing stuff with fighting because there was just
Yeah.
people just kind of shooting each other and stuff. I remember, like I said, Appleseed did a lot of that, but he did a lot of again tactics or whatever, made it a little more interesting. But gunfights can be kind of hard sometimes. I think that's why a lot of superhero teams will mix superpowers with fisticuffs and gunfights. So you have shooting and then close combat to mix it up. Um,
Yeah,
And
yeah.
anything to make it more interesting. We were talking a little bit about that Sunday night. Changing angles and stuff. Whatever you can do to keep
Hmm.
the visuals eye catching and stuff. Because people are watching
Yeah.
TV. I mean, the screen is changing every 4 seconds. It's like
Yeah.
if you're not born with ADHD, you watch enough
You're gonna
TV,
get it
you'll
by
get it.
watching TV.
Yeah.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
I mean, in comics, you need to use everything that you have at your disposal to keep the shots coming and keep them fresh, keep that brain sizzling while somebody's reading. Uh, that's what I say. So as long as you can do that with your fighting scenes and not just, there's the talking heads, but there's also the punch trading. You know, uh, you got to keep it real too. But I don't know how much martial arts I've ever done. I've personally done anyway. I mean, I could tell you plenty
Yeah.
of what I've seen, uh,
Right.
but
I know
most of my
Curtis
stuff's
does.
been guns
Yeah. Dean. I
or
know Dean is in martial arts.
powers.
Yeah. Mine's been mostly guns or
Powers.
yeah.
Yep.
Which I guess you don't really need to know a lot. That's always thought it would like, what would it be like if somebody drew a Batman comic that was a martial artist? Because they always draw Batman like doing fisticuffs, but I always wonder, and I'm sure somebody has actually drawn a Batman or written one that's a martial artist and showing him actually using specific martial arts moves and stuff.
Well,
Uh,
wasn't it during was it Batman Incorporated that they had him go retrain and whatnot while he had other people doing Batman stuff around the
yeah,
world? Like they had
yeah,
that, like that they showed him doing some. It's funny because you're calling it fisticuffs, which is what it is. But we refer to it as chapsaki.
Tapasaki.
Yeah.
I can't remember who drew it. I want to say that it was Neil Adams, maybe. I can't remember,
I
but I
could see him
remember when
doing
Yeah,
I
I
it
was
don't
too.
remember.
in shop class. Of course, this has been years ago. Shop class, and I was looking at this Batman book, and I remember it so well because it was the first time I think I'd really seen because I was more of a Marvel guy, but I did, kind of pick up DC here and there. But a friend of mine had a Batman comic that I was buying from him anyway. I actually wasn't buying it until I saw that shot, but in that there's a fight scene in there where he is Sparta kicking a guy, and it was so good that that thing sold the comic. I was like, "You want how much you want for this?" I gave him my lunch money for his book.
Nice.
Yeah, it was so good. It was so good the way he did it. And because I had never really seen Batman kick anybody, and they had him kind of, if I remember the shot correctly, and you always, your
Yeah,
memory's a little off, but the way I remember it is it showed from half thigh up, and he was leaned over and kicking. I mean, he was actually Sparta kicking this guy, and it was so good. I remember it to this day. It was such an iconic shot of him actually making some, doing some martial arts moves. It didn't really even look martial arts though. This looked like a just all out power kick, Falcon kick, you know.
Right. That's cool.
It
hold
didn't
on.
look martial arts. It didn't look pretty. It didn't look ninja. It didn't look anything. It was just brutal.
So Casisi says for new comics where not a lot is known about the characters, when a writer is trying to convey that scene, would you prefer short bios on the characters, or is this where you would want a lot of description? I
I
don't
mean,
know.
I think you would get short bios at the beginning before you
Yeah,
started working anyway. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Not
It
necessarily when the fight
depends
scene
with
happens.
Yeah, it depends with me. Like that is a good. I think that's an awesome tactic. I think that's an awesome thing to do. But it depends on if I. I mean, this kind of goes without saying.
right.
Sometimes I like for people to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's a part of the story that I'm putting into the book that I really want to get to this other stuff, I might go ahead and do like a couple pages either at the end or the beginning for a bio, for each one
Yeah.
of have like a character shot of them and then have like a quick bio of them, kind of like the old GI Joe cards. Remember
Yeah.
those?
Nice.
And it's
Yeah.
funny, as for writing fighting scenes and drawing fighting scenes, yeah, a bio, I've never had anyone give it to me, but like a short little paragraph or something always helps.
Just like describing some
Especially like
capabilities and whatnot.
mannerisms. Like if you write a bio, like this character always has like a stern face, a very hardened character, then I kind of know how to draw him. That sort of thing. Oh, this person's very, funny, makes lots of jokes, and I can kind of, draw a certain way they move and stuff. I think it helps.
This person
That's
fights
what I
and
would
never
like.
loses his cigar.
Yeah, pretty much. It never does. So I mean, it's funny, Quentin. You've done a few action. I'm trying to think. I've seen you do some action scenes. I know you have some coming up in Night Rise. I think you're doing the
Yeah,
first issue.
yep. And there's one in Trump's in particular. It's not really a fighting scene, but it's where this woman is it's in number 3. It's the Queen of Spades, and she's
Hmm.
trying to uh, coerce the King of Spades to, not gather his forces together. And, she's doing her whole thing with her feminine wilds and stuff. And then he
Yeah.
grabs her hands and then he throws her to the floor. I really enjoyed that. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
And the stream is cut. All right.
Yeah,
Thanks, Quentin.
Right.
demonetized. No, I'm kidding, but that was a yeah, that was a pretty good scene. Just in the doing of it, because I've never
Right.
drawn anything like that before. I mean, I've drawn characters punching each other or stabbing each other or shooting each other, but never wife battering. It was
Yeah,
it,
that's a little
yeah,
different, and it would be. I mean, you'd have to almost focus less on the action and almost on the trauma of her being pushed or shoved. That she's
yeah,
kind of,
yeah.
defenseless against him.
Yeah, because it is. You don't really think much about it. Oh, this will be easy, and then you go into it, and you're like, "Wait a minute, okay, I have to think this out."
Right.
Okay, so how are people gonna know that? He's grabs her hands, and then he pushes her. You gotta do it just the right way so that the
Yeah.
thought comes across, and not only the thought, but it needs to be impactful when she,
Yeah.
when her head hits the floor.
That's
Like,
right.
little
Yeah,
did you know, they
yeah,
start dancing.
So
yeah.
Xizzy asked Quentin, "What is your favorite comic fight sequence?"
Oh boy.
And he also says, "This is really good info." I'm glad we can help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always loved and this is like my go-to, but just because growing up he was my favorite character in that Spider-Man.
Hmm.
So much acrobatics and so much, jumping and hopping off of stuff and onto people and off of people, and aside from all the web shooting and all that jazz. Um oh, there was one that I think back to. There was also the Death of Superman. I really enjoyed that. How
Oh yeah, yeah.
that was
The
done.
Oh, nice.
The fight between Superman and Doomsday. Man, I was just floored. The way every time they would hit, and I could just
Glass would
see the
shatter.
blast. I could see the blast happening in my brains as I was going through the panels.
I'm not gonna
Um,
lie, I got a little choked up when I was reading that.
yep,
yeah.
yep.
Like, I'll be
It was
honest.
good. It was good.
It's funny. I always Spider-Man. I every time they drew him, I really got more of a sense of Spider-Man fought when I watched him in like movies and video games. And I think
Yeah.
the one that really I think got a sense of how he fought was Tom McFarlane, because he was able to like bend and contort. So he really pushed the idea this guy was so flexible, which
Todd
I didn't
McFarlane made it
realize.
feel like even if you landed a punch on Spider-Man, he's so agile that he's
Yeah,
just gonna move with the punch, and
yeah,
it's like hitting something solid. If you got somebody on the ground and they're up against something solid and you hit them, man, it's impact. But
yeah,
when I see Spider-Man, he's so agile and he jumps around, moves around stuff. When he gets hit, it's like he's light as a feather, and he's just gonna ride your hand, all the way to your arm, to your arms extended, and then just whip around and kick you and stuff.
They actually did a good,
It's
really
weird,
good
really
job
weird.
in the first Sam Raimi movie when he was getting in a fight with Flash Thompson. He punched, and they showed him like slow motion, just kind of like
Oh
step
yeah,
aside.
when they slowed it
Yeah,
down.
that's why I kind of figured them into quitting and stuff. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I always did.
I know
I
that
st-
was, by the way, that was kind of cheap, and that was a simple go-to with the Superman and Doomsday, but it was probably
yeah,
like I've never seen a punch in a comic like have that much impact. Usually, people are punching and hitting and kicking all the
yeah.
time, but those punches were like, wow, this is
Right.
really, this is really crazy here.
Because he says, "I love this because none of you mentioned like Nightcrawler or Magneto. I always liked
Well,
Nightcrawler.
because I mean, Nightcrawler, in a sense, I feel doesn't necessarily want to fight,
Yeah, punching or brawling just
and
create a lot more impact.
most of
Yeah,
his like bamfing, his line of sight teleportation is more to get out of the way
right.
and counter. You know what I mean? So like more to stop someone from swinging on them. Um, and what was the other one?
Magneto. Magneto
Magneto.
was much more
Magneto
like,
just like and pulls the iron out of
yeah.
your friggin' blood. So
I mean, he
Yeah,
just kind
he
of
for
stood
doesn't
up
even
there
really
and
need to
looked
fight.
kind of
for
stoic.
me, when it comes to like Doctor Doom or Magneto or any of them, it seems to me to be like really, really, I would not like to see a book where Doctor Doom or Magneto was having to actually, go toe to toe with somebody because,
Yeah,
it seems like it'd be beneath them to actually raise a finger
Right.
other than
exactly.
melting somebody from afar.
It would
Uh,
kind of defeat the sort of godlike status they inhabit. So,
yeah,
and because he says which isn't intuitive because I love power bases and not like brawling, but it makes sense that brawling is more impactful. I think visually brawling could be more impactful. I
But
think
you
this is
have like
one reason why like
you have to
Wolverine.
have the brawler on your team. If you make a team, you know what I mean. You have
Yeah,
the smarts, you got the TK or mental person, you got the feral person, and you got the big
right.
bulky dude. Like every like I mean, there's I don't know like an unspoken like roster requirement you have to have. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
well, imagine doing characters like Juggernaut or Hulk, where it's all impact. It's
yeah.
Right.
everything is brawling and everything is, man.
I think this is why
And when
Wolverine
they
was
hit
so
each other,
popular.
like
Yeah.
they knock each other out of the state and crap, out of the city.
Right.
It's
That's
crazy.
what made it so fun. In fact, I even remember again playing this Hulk video game. I played all the time because they did a good job of like that impact and beating stuff up. And because I mean, it's just the idea of like you punch so hard you can knock a building down or something. That was
That's
something kind of
crazy.
fun about that. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was just fun. I mean, there was something fun about that. Um, but yeah, Wolverine, I think is. I mean, I'm thinking the more popular superhero characters are brawlers. I mean, Captain America is a brawler.
Hmm.
Wolverine is. Iron Man, not so much, more like laser beams and stuff. But some of the, and I think as an artist, I'm probably more excited. If you ask me, like, what would I rather draw, Wolverine or Iron Man? It'd be Wolverine because all the moves and poses I could get him into to really make it dynamic. Where Iron Man, it's more just like his hands out and he's shooting stuff. I mean, you can still do stuff, but Wolverine, I mean, it'd be the one like, oh yeah, that'd be my go-to as far as like drawing dynamic poses and
I
stuff.
tell you what, I
Right.
would love to see. I haven't seen yet, and somebody's going to do it now, and it's probably been done. Who knows? There's no new thing under the
Yeah.
sun. Uh, is to see somebody like the Hulk or somebody punch somebody up so hard that it's a crater under him. Like whenever he punches up, boom! I mean, it's like
That
it's
it
like
just
a
knocks
huge
everything
crater
down.
around him, and that person like goes, straight up. That would be so
Yeah.
cool,
But
man.
is your favorite characters brawlers or people with amazing powers? Mine are brawlers. I mean, my some of my favorite characters are
It
Conan.
depends on the artist that's drawing them.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was gonna say it depends on the artist.
If they're good at it, oh man, I wouldn't
yeah,
mind taking in some Luke Cage or some.
yeah.
If the right artist is doing it, shoot, yeah.
It's funny.
Like
Yeah,
some OG
Conan's one of my
OG Luke
favorite
Cage.
characters. Judge Dredd is not really a brawler, somewhat, but he has no powers. More an authority figure, but like Barbarians, Conan, Fantasy. Always
By
like
the
that,
way,
which is more brawler based.
I didn't greet you, Casisi, when I came in. Sorry about that. Hope you're doing well this evening.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you for joining us.
yeah. Thank you. Um, yeah. Now I'm trying to think of some of my other favorite, like Wonder Woman. I'm a big fan of Wonder Woman, and she's a straight up brawler, sword, shield, right in
Yep.
your face.
I
Yeah,
mean,
Which
yeah,
most of the
she
stuff
wasn't
I've
to
seen
begin with.
her with, she hasn't had her sword and shield. It's always been like punches and
Yeah,
stuff.
even though she can fly and is almost as powerful as Superman, she's a straight up brawler. Superman still uses a lot of laser beams, like eye beams, but Wonder Woman can't do that, so she's got to get in your face, which I always
Yep.
thought was interesting. She really was kind of like more of a superhero barbarian in a way, which I always thought was kind
Yeah,
of interesting. So, but yeah, yeah, brawlers I've always tended towards. I still think it's really weird when every time they do Superman characters, like even in the boys and stuff, and they have laser beams. They always shoot like laser beams out of the eyes. Like that's their go-to move, and I'm like, kind
yeah,
of takes away all their moves a little bit. I'm like, Superman, it can be a like with the death of Superman, can be a brawler. And I always thought it was cool when Superman would mix his powers, like punching and then shooting lasers and freezing and mixing them. But sometimes they just get kind of lazy and everything's just shooting lasers all the time.
right. Turning into lightning. Oh wait, that's the other Superman.
Lazy, using their god powers.
Yeah,
Right.
which is
They're all gonna get fat.
yeah.
No, they gotta burn some calories, Magneto.
I never and I always liked, strangely enough, this is a question for all. When you had godlike characters like Doom or Magneto, did you always like it when the artist drew them a little less muscular? Because it didn't seem like Magneto one doesn't ever really need to be. I mean, he could be toned, but it doesn't need to be a bodybuilder. I mean, and I always liked it when it was more like a Gandalf or a little skinnier or more of a normal looking guy, because then when he could do these godlike powers, it's much more effective.
I wouldn't mind Magneto having like a normal physique,
Yeah.
like a classic physique. You know, that physique that's not
Hmm.
highly detailed. And I think
Yeah.
in a case like that, nowadays they don't ever really do the basic. Usually they'll have them in like uh, a thick costume.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wouldn't mind Magneto being. I mean, I always thought Jim Lee really. It looked good, but I always thought, he's a little buff
He was a
to
little too
to be
buff.
as old as he
Yeah.
was, and what his powers are. But
Yeah.
that's
I always
uh,
thought that too. I always thought Jim Lee drew him a little too muscular. There was a few other issues like Arthur Adams and stuff drew him. That's what I always liked when Ian McKellen played him. More of like this sort of old man type. That's what I always liked, that sort of look.
yeah.
But they kind of do that. I mean, that's the go to me. All superheroes have, the ultimate physiques. Again, Spider-Man, I always liked, again, he was skinnier. My favorite Spider-Man is when they drew him really skinny. Not super buff, but just toned and skinny. I always thought Mark Begley actually did a pretty good Spider-Man. He did a lot of the
Mark
ultimate, I
Bagley
think
was
ultimate,
good.
yeah,
Him to me, him he did Spider Man. Him and Stephen Butler, and to
Yeah.
me, their art was really close.
yeah,
I always thought their art was really close. Of course, there is a clear difference, but I always thought their art was, pretty close. I always loved the job that Stephen Butler. I liked Eric Larson,
yeah. He did a good.
Bagley. Uh, let's see. Of course, McFarlane, but McFarlane was his
Kind of his
Spider-Man's
own
always
unique
different.
thing.
It's always really
Yeah.
different. Um, can't really think of the other artists that did. I mean, there was plenty that
Oh
did
God, there were a ton of them. Yeah, I'm trying to think.
Spider-Man, but
I know Joe Mad's drawn Spider-Man a few times. He does a pretty decent job. Mark Bagley was
Humberto,
always one of my favorite ones. The Mark Bagley, when I got into him, he did a lot of, I think, the New Warriors. And there was a character on there that was called Speedball. That was kind of a skinnier guy, and he did the same sort of physique on Spider-Man that he did on Speedball. That same
Then
sort of
they
idea.
ruined them and turned them into penance or penance. Yeah, they were
oh
penance.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I was like,
yep.
what?
So it's like Cassisi says, it's pretty crazy because I'm drawn so visually to like a Doctor Doom, a Doctor Strange, or power based characters, but that doesn't seem to be what's the most impactful. I mean, I think you can make it impactful. I mean, Magneto's up there surrounded by flying metal, whatever. I mean, that's obviously very impactful. But as far as like an artist, I mean, there's nothing more impactful than a fist hitting a face and watching like the face distort or whatever. I mean, that's
Yeah.
I mean,
I,
there's
I think
straight up
I think it
impact,
depends
right?
on like the particular story you're trying to tell. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
KCC says Spider-Man is probably the most healthy mix of power base and brawling. Him and maybe Thor. Yeah, I can see that.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely agree.
Because
Yeah.
Spider-Man is a brawler, but he has the webs to help accentuate it. Same thing with Thor.
Yeah, I gotta say, guys, I mean, I like Superman and everything, but he's just too powerful to me.
And it's
He
funny, he
just
didn't start off that way too.
he just seems a. I know they
They just
but
keep
over
adding powers to the
like
guy.
for instance, there was one comic where him and Batman are on a rooftop. I can't remember, but
Yeah.
Batman said something to him, and it really made him mad. And Superman turned around and he punched at him, but he stopped like so far
From
before
his
his
face. Yeah.
face, and the captions were saying, and he stops so far away from Batman's face because he knows if he gets any closer, just the very wind will crush his skull. And I
Yeah.
was like, that's too much.
It
That's just too
is.
powerful. Uh,
And I think Superman is one of those characters where history just made him what he is. I mean, Marvel I think does a pretty good job of evenly. I think the one that's overpowered in Marvel a little bit is Doctor Strange. I always just thought like every time there was something a problem, like they just get Doctor Strange, he whips up a spell and like it's done, and I'm like, oh
yep.
okay, it's
Always with
almost
those
magic.
plot devices, right?
Yeah,
Kind of
yeah,
like the Scarlet Witch. She
hmm
always just seemed to have whatever they needed to get out of the problem.
yeah. That like was
Funny.
it Deus Machina or whatever the sort of the right there at the right time. Yeah, there was
Absolutely.
Doctor Strange, and they don't use him as much, but I mean, every time he comes in, he always has something to fix these overarching problems and stuff. Superman is almost that way for DC. The only limit that they put on is Superman can't be everywhere at once. So I get that. They try to put some limitations on him, but I think it's just he was the original superhero, and they just kept giving him powers and giving him powers to the point like, okay, now what do we do? I think we it's kind of like overpowering your character in D&D, and now you don't know how to depower him. And I think that's almost kind of with Superman. They don't know how to do it. They made up stuff like he's weak to magic and stuff. But I mean, it just doesn't really make any sense. But I mean, it's something, I guess.
Yeah.
Because Kryptonians are all about science, my dude.
Yeah, yeah. I guess that's what it is. So if you say a spell or
Well,
enchantment,
a
then
lot of good it did them, right?
yeah,
Right.
I know. And then of course, Batman I always like because he was, no powers, but it was all about the brain and stuff, and I always liked him. And it's funny, Batman is a brawler, but there's almost a point like he is and he isn't because he's very methodical. I mean, he's the guy that hide in the shadows and pick you off one by one. So he's
Coward.
almost a mix a little bit between the two.
What a coward.
Yeah, I
That
know.
guy.
Instilling fear and stuff. He's the only one that ever used fear. I'm trying to think, even in brawling, who else used fear as a weapon? Like even in
Daredevil, right?
Marvel.
No,
Sinestro.
he's the man without fear, right? Yeah.
Yeah. The Punisher, maybe a little bit. Maybe I don't know.
He's got
Yeah,
the
Um,
I'm actually yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I
I
guess
would
because
be
DC
scared of the
says
you
Spawn and
Punisher.
mean
Ghost
that
Rider.
isn't
Ghost Rider,
powered?
yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Ghost
Yeah.
Rider.
Well, he uses
Those are two of my
not so
favorite.
much your own fear. He uses your own guilt against you with his
Yeah.
penance. Yeah.
But still, I mean, there's nothing scary than seeing a guy with the skull on fire.
Yeah.
Well, I mean
Um,
that is true.
I don't know, I still like Ghost Rider. And I know sometimes he's hard to write or whatever, but there was just something really cool about that. I mean, a guy with a skull on fire. I mean, there was something.
Oh, there's some characters that just are my favorite characters,
Yeah,
but they can't be my absolute favorites because the writing on them has always been. I've always felt like they haven't touched their potential,
yeah,
and
Too
he's one of them.
cliche.
yeah.
That
Ghost Rider's one. I think. Yeah, I've read a few stories by him, and they've been decent. But I can't think of any that like epitome of that Ghost Rider story. I mean, he's such a visually cool looking character, but
hmm
I just
I
I
like
don't
Robbie
know. I
Ray as
mean,
Ghost Rider.
pardon me, Jose.
I like Robbie Ray as Ghost Rider
Yeah, I
Honestly,
thought that was cool.
usually
with the
with
car. Come
characters, I
on.
like the first versions or the first iterations
Yeah,
usually. But honestly, with what they've done with Ghost Rider in the past, I like the Reyes, whole thing as much as I do any of them.
yeah,
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I thought Reyes was cool when they a lot. I think of some of the artists who drew his skull was like stylized, so it wasn't like a human
yeah. It's
skull.
because it
It
was
was
meant to be more like a metal mask, almost not so much a skull.
yeah, which I thought was
Like it
really
was
cool.
supposed
And
to
the
be
fact that he had
like
a
it was supposed to be like a chrome mask, and like it had like a point that came down like right here, almost like this like little diamond shape, and
yeah,
like that's kind of where the flame came out of.
yeah. They
what
did
y'all
some.
think about the Punisher Ghost Rider?
I don't know.
Y'all
I
seen
get
that?
the funny thing is I think
The
it's a good
Cosmic Ghost
combination.
Rider. The concept was interesting, right? The fact
Yeah.
that he then lost his mind.
Yep.
Didn't they just do like a cosmic Ghost Rider a while ago where he was in space and he was mixed with
That's what
something
I'm
else?
talking about. That's
That was
Yeah.
the
the
Punisher one?
Punisher
Okay,
edition.
I thought
Not
so.
So
only does he
Cosmic Ghost
become the
Rider,
Ghost Rider, but he also becomes like the Herald of Galactus. Is that right?
yeah,
That's okay.
because
Yeah.
everyone on the Earth was dead except for him, and Galactus is like, dude, why don't you just come be my hero? I was like, sure, why not?
I got nothing else
Let
to
me get
do,
my
right?
cosmic motorcycle.
Yeah.
Uh, I will admit that I've always liked horror-based superheroes, like
I
Ghost Rider.
love, I wish we could see more horror comics, period,
Yeah, straight
Like
up.
Uh,
back in the like EC comic days.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
dude.
There was
There's a
one of my
company doing
favorite
'em. I should get up and go get the books.
quasi
Give them
horror
a shout
comic
out.
was a
Let me
comic
Yeah,
do
called
that.
there's
Hold on.
Horrors.
Hold on. Let
I
me go get them.
know there's
Yeah.
one called, was it I want to say Asylum. I actually have their somewhere. I have their blank. I have a blank for their book called Vampires, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna draw Grandpa Munster on it.
Is it a blank cover?
Yeah,
That'd be cool. I
yeah, I'm
think
gonna draw a picture of
vampires are
Grandpa
another
Munster.
one, but I've always liked more of the horror stuff with unique, like Ghost Rider and stuff. I never got into. I never saw the Mobius. I never got into the Living Vampire. I don't know why. I did like Blade. I'll give maybe
I
it's
saw
because of
Morbius.
Wesley
I,
Snipes.
I'm a big Morbius fan. Like straight up, I love Morbius as a character.
Did you see the movie?
I did.
Was
I
it?
don't
I
want to say
never
it was
saw it.
terrible.
Was it even worth it?
Um, I feel because I'm just glad they have a Morbius movie, but I feel they got to the point too quickly
Okay.
and left a lot open for interpretation.
ACP Comics. Forbidden
Forbidden
Gallery.
Gallery.
Yep.
Great. He's gonna get us
Uh,
kicked off the air
Is that the
again.
one? The Forbidden Museum is one too, and it's like this dude is like the descendant of Van Helsing, and
Oh yeah,
he
yeah.
has.
Stephen Butler,
Oh yeah, I've
baby.
seen that.
Classic. Classic Stephen
He
Butler.
always reminded me a little bit of Arthur Adams, just a tad.
Yeah. If you want that classic art, dude, that is like, which this is not Stephen Butler, but
Right.
We should do a show on horror comics.
man, we should. We
We got
should.
Halloween
These are
coming up
good.
here in a
These are
month.
good. These are good. This is issue
Yeah.
3. I got them all. And
Did
they're
you
real
read?
accessible too. The guy got in touch with me. He's like, thanks for buying it and all
Yeah.
that stuff. It
That's
was really
cool.
cool. Really
Did
cool.
you ever read a comic called The Nocturnals by Dan Burrington?
Yes, by Dan Barrett. Or yeah, Dave Barrington.
Man,
Uh,
that sounds really familiar.
it's cool.
Swamp Thing as a whole, like back in the day, was considered. Was it when not
Uh,
Simonton?
oh yeah, I got a horror comic.
Yeah.
Bernie Wrightson, Bernie Wrightson, or was it Walt Simonton
Yeah.
that did the art for Swamp Thing?
Is Swamp Thing considered horror? I would
I think
say
so.
yes, closer to horror. Now, I never read Alan Moore's run. I know he got very philosophical in some of his, but I would always consider Swamp Thing horror, especially Man Thing.
Here's an old horror comic right here.
War of the Fallen. I've read
Yeah,
that. Wait,
I
did
did this
you
one.
work on?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I remember seeing you showing me the pages for that.
I didn't know you drew comics, Quentin.
Yeah, every now and then. Yeah. See. Well, wait. Let me go to a different. This is like 10 years old. So you people be good.
Yeah, be nice.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I like
Yeah.
the panel layout.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. It's
I want to take a stab at doing a horror comic. I don't know if my art style would fit a horror comic, but I always want to take
Yeah.
a
This
stab at it.
scene. I love this. This scene right here. When she
Oh, with
wakes
the
up in the class, she wakes up in her class, and that thing is like behind everybody, but nobody can see it except for her. It's a classic
Right.
movie trope, you know.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. So it is 9:05. I know that we've been trying to end the streams within an hour. So does anyone have any last things on like fighting and
Yes,
comics?
double page spread. That's what I.
Double
That's my final
page
thing. Yeah,
spread.
baby. Yeah, look at
Just
that. He's got blood all over him. All right, someone call for the doctor. Yeah.
nice. I like his knife. Looks like one of those crazy knives you used to buy in like you go into like those like import stores and they had those crazy weird knives.
Yeah, he gets all that blood on him from this right here. These guys are right on the other side of the
Ooh,
curtain, and
holy!
schwack.
He's not messing around.
Yeah,
How long ago did you do this comic?
that
10
was
years ago.
2009. 2009. Yeah,
Was it only
this is
one
the one.
issue, or is it? Is
One
it?
issue. Yeah, one issue. Oh wait, you know what? I think. Do I have? No. Anyway, this is the one that Steve. Whenever I talked to Brian Pulido about it, and he said, "Man, this looks really good. You need to get some help though, because you're gonna." He said I was gonna burn myself out because I was doing everything on it. You know, I was trying to get that total control. You know, that's the thing. Whenever you do
Yeah.
your own stuff, you got total control, but you will really burn a
You pay
hole in
for
your
it.
soul.
Yeah.
You know.
You talking to somebody who just did 300 pages?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but you done lost your mind a while ago.
My mind was gone a long time
Yeah,
ago.
dude.
So yeah. CC says, "Great stream tonight. I'll definitely incorporate this stuff in the future. Thanks for taking the time. Have a good night, all. Have a good night,
Dude,
CC.
thanks
Yeah,
for
thanks
asking
for coming on.
questions.
CC, you take care, my friend.
Yeah.
You have a good week, good day tomorrow.
So, do we have anything else we want to talk about fighting in comics or anything? Or
Pacing. I'm telling you, pacing. You're gonna
it
write a
is.
fight scene. You're gonna draw a fight scene. Pace it out.
Yep.
Block it out. Like do always. I mean, if you don't already do layouts and whatnot, or roughs for of how
Oh
you
yeah.
do stuff.
Also
You know
say
what I
don't
mean?
dialogue it too bad. Don't.
Yeah.
I mean, put some dialogue, but don't have. I was just saying this Sunday night. Don't have them cutting a flip and have three word bubbles. You know, worth of
That
text. You know,
seemed
it's
weird when
like
they did that.
that's strange. It's just
It is a
strange.
Yeah.
little.
Right.
Yeah.
Like
I
this dude's cutting flips, and he's got the air in his lungs and the time during that flip to, you know, have 3 paragraphs of dialogue.
Right. Order pizza. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. A little strange. Yeah.
Hi, Mom. I'm a little busy. Let me call you back. Bye. You know, and
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, what was I
Definitely.
saying? And then
Yeah.
he
I never
lands.
liked. I usually less dialogue is always usually what I prefer. I don't mind. Chris Claremont was the king of dialogue through all his fight scenes, and
Yeah,
it
he's
always
getting
felt a little
canceled.
weird. Yeah.
He's getting canceled.
He is getting canceled.
I heard
You
that.
hear
I
about
watched
that?
that video.
Nuts,
Yeah.
No.
dude. He did a con, and man, they are after him. Like they got blood.
There's a
They
part of me
smell
that
blood.
Claremont is such a like.
He
Is it
doesn't
really going to
care.
even affect him to get canceled?
He doesn't care.
I
He
don't think
doesn't
he
care.
cares. He's too old, and he's done his run, his comics, he's done it. I mean, it's like when they kind of canceled Frank Miller. It's like, yeah, he's already done the Frank Miller. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
Yep.
Cancel Frank Miller, so he goes and makes his own publishing company.
yeah,
Yeah, no kidding.
yeah. So,
Anyway, well, that's pretty much it for me. Do a shout out to our sponsors, OCD, and also Daytona Beach Comic Con,
which is coming up in like
That's gonna
what
be a
3
blast.
weeks?
September the 11th, isn't
Yeah.
it? Also, we've got OCD Collector Deviants, and what is the other? It's
There was a
I can't remember. Something of
there's something
comics.
Coliseum of Comics.
Yeah, Coliseum of Comics. Sorry, guys.
Sorry about
Man,
that.
you are
Yeah,
not
Hey,
getting your money's worth out of
yeah,
me. Sorry.
Chuck's getting some
yeah.
slack. He's tired.
I am, man.
Comes
I
on and
am.
just ruins the
8:30
show.
and today I had to work and then go to meet the teacher because kids start school Thursday.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Man, they
it.
have been
It's
up
not
under
just
me
me.
every day, every day, every day.
Oh,
And now they're going back to
So,
school. I had to do meet the teacher and then back to work. I had to clock back in and now this.
this.
like, man,
But I actually enjoy this part of it. So
Too bad I'm on here. I understand.
I've missed you, Aaron Humphreys.
Yeah, I've been kind of. I'm coming back. I'm coming back. Yeah, you were on vacation for a while because.
Well, I was on vacation, and then it was just one thing after the other. We came back. I came back into busy time. I work for a national company, so
Yeah.
like whenever
Work
it's
doesn't
busy,
stop
it's
when you're
really
on
busy.
vacation. It just stacks up.
That's exactly right.
kind of,
Yep.
yeah.
Gotta play catch up, unfortunately. So, okay, well that
All right.
is the show on Tuesday night. So before we go, we always say the one thing we always say: make mine Silverline.
Drink more
Make
milk.
mine Silverline.
Drink more
Oh,
milk.
hell
There you
yeah.
go.
Make mine Silverline. Yeah, baby.
Yeah. Good night, everyone.
Hi, my name is Sergio Cariello, and make mine Silverline.